Welcome to the Relationships Decoding podcast.
You ever talk to a friend and they're telling you about someone they work with, and you kind of get the feeling like this person has always got to be,
the center of attention.
yeah, like a little extra,
A little much.
a little much, yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and they were describing this colleague who, like, if someone else on their team got recognized for something, all of a sudden this person would like need a ton of help and make sure everyone knew about it. And if their needs weren't met right away,
Oh boy.
apparently they would like get really upset,
Really?
like a huge reaction.
Oh wow.
And anytime things were kind of calm in the office, this
Yeah.
person would just like
Stir things up.
stir things up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Big apologies.
huge apologies,
Oh,
like very theatrical.
interesting.
It really got me thinking about those kinds of intense reactions
Right.
and that need to always be,
Center of attention.
at the center,
Yeah.
which is kind of what we're going to be looking at today.
That's right.
Histrionic Personality Disorder,
Mhm.
or HPD.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of people listening can probably relate to that story in some way.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we all know people who, maybe they
Like to be in the spotlight.
like the attention a little more than others.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fundamental part of human interaction.
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking about that too.
Yeah.
Like, there's a real spectrum, right? Like on one end, you have people who are just like
Yeah.
naturally outgoing.
Right.
And then you have,
Yeah. The other end of the spectrum where things might be a little more
right.
deeply rooted.
Yeah, more serious.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a deep dive into
Histrionic Personality Disorder.
HPD.
And it's super important right off the bat to understand the difference
Right.
between just having some histrionic traits and having the full-blown clinical diagnosis.
Yeah. You can be extroverted, lively, emotionally expressive,
Right.
and those can all be good things,
Absolutely.
even like charismatic.
Yeah.
But HPD, it's a persistent pattern,
Right.
and it can cause a lot of problems in someone's life.
Yeah.
Imagine like a leaky bucket
Okay.
that constantly needs to be filled up with external validation
Oh.
that gives you a little bit of a sense of what's going on with HPD.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
It's not just about being dramatic once in a while.
Right.
It's a fundamental pattern,
Yeah. It's like their whole...
their way of being,
Yeah.
and it can affect their relationships,
Yeah.
their work, their social life,
Their
I mean,
well-being overall.
their well-being.
Right. And it's good to remember that like everyone's personality is different. That's not a bad thing.
Right.
But when certain personality patterns start causing problems, distress in their own lives and other people's lives,
Yeah.
and they're not able to function as well. That's when it becomes a potential disorder. So we really want to get a grasp on what are those core characteristics of HPD,
Yeah.
what could be causing them, and how can we as listeners, if we encounter this,
Right.
how can we navigate those situations?
Right. So let's start with defining HPD a little more formally.
Okay.
At its core, it's this persistent pattern
Mm-hmm.
of being really emotional
Yeah.
and attention-seeking.
Yeah.
And it's not just someone who likes to be social.
Right.
It's that they need
Yeah.
to be the center of attention
Uh-huh.
in almost every situation.
It's like a need.
Yeah, it's a need.
Yeah.
It goes way beyond just,
Yeah.
being an extrovert or
Yeah.
liking to be noticed.
Right. Right.
And this isn't just, a little quirk
Right.
that might annoy people a little.
Mm-hmm.
This can have real consequences.
Yeah. What kind of consequences are we talking about?
Well, it can affect their social functioning
Okay.
because they need so much attention. It can be hard to really connect with them
Right.
and build like a give and take relationship.
Uh-huh.
And it can affect their work too.
Oh, yeah. How so?
If they're more focused on being seen
Right.
than on doing their actual job,
Yeah.
it can be a problem.
Makes sense.
And romantic relationships,
Yeah.
those are often really rocky and tough to maintain.
So what are the specific criteria clinicians look for
Okay.
when they're actually diagnosing HPD?
So the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual,
Yeah.
it lays out 8 key criteria.
Okay.
The first one is that they are really uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
when they're not the center of attention.
Oh, wow.
They actually feel anxious or even distressed
Oh,
when people aren't paying attention to them.
wow.
The second one is
Okay.
that they express their emotions in this really dramatic way,
Yeah.
like over the top,
Yeah.
but it often feels kind of fake.
Okay.
It lacks that genuine depth, like they're
Okay.
putting on a show.
Like they're always turned up to 11? Got it. Okay.
The third one is that they often use their looks or their behavior to get attention in a way that's like
Provocative.
provocative. Yeah.
Yeah.
The fourth one is about their speech.
Okay.
It tends to be what we call impressionistic,
Impressionistic.
which means it's lacking detail. It's like a painting with broad strokes,
Okay.
but not much fine detail.
Got it.
They might talk about things in these really emotional terms, but they don't give you specifics or evidence.
So it's all about their subjective experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Number 5 is
Okay.
that their emotions tend to shift really quickly,
Oh.
and they can seem kind of shallow.
Like they're not really feeling it deeply?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Number 6 is suggestibility.
Okay.
They're easily influenced by other people,
Mm.
you know, their opinions and suggestions.
So they kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, they kind of lack that solid sense of self.
Gotcha.
Number 7, they might think their relationships are way more intimate
Oh,
than they actually are.
really?
Like calling someone their best friend
Wow.
after knowing them for like a week.
Okay.
And finally, number 8
Okay.
is just this general,
Yeah.
dramatic, theatrical,
Mm-hmm.
exaggerated way of interacting with people.
Okay.
And the main goal is to get attention.
Always about the attention.
Yeah,
Gotcha. So if someone's checking off a bunch of these boxes,
right.
what are we actually seeing in their lives?
Well, like we mentioned, unstable relationships are really common.
Okay.
That need for attention,
Mhm.
the way they express their emotions,
Yeah.
it can create a lot of conflict.
Right.
People can feel manipulated,
Oh, yeah.
or like the emotions aren't real.
Yeah.
And underneath it all,
Yeah.
the source material really emphasizes this.
Mm-hmm.
They really rely on other people
Okay.
to validate them,
Right.
to feel good about themselves.
And if they don't get that validation,
Exactly.
what happens?
They can become depressed, anxious.
Okay.
They might act impulsively.
So we're trying to fill that void.
Yeah, to cope with that distress.
That makes a lot of sense.
So we've talked about the outward behavior,
Right.
but what about what's going on inside?
Yeah, like in their heads.
What are they thinking that might lead to all of this?
Yeah. What are the thought patterns?
So one common one is,
Okay.
if someone isn't super enthusiastic
Mm-hmm.
when they're interacting with me,
Right.
they must not like me.
Oh, so they take it really personally?
Yeah, they misinterpret like neutral or even just slightly reserved reactions
Yeah.
as rejection.
Like a personal attack.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. What else?
Another big one is,
Okay.
my value as a person depends on how much attention I get.
So it's all tied up in that external validation.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that can lead to thoughts like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to stand out,
Mm-hmm.
I need to be noticed
Yeah.
in order to be valued.
To prove my worth.
Yeah, and that fuels the drama, the attention-seeking.
Makes sense. And is there anything else?
One more.
Okay.
This one's called emotion-driven thinking.
Okay.
They think my feelings are facts.
Yeah.
So I don't need to be logical.
Yes.
I don't need to think things through.
Right.
My feelings are all the proof I need.
Okay.
And that can make it really hard
Yeah.
to see things from other people's perspectives
Right.
or to solve problems when they're upset.
Because they're just caught up in the emotion.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay. So how do these thought patterns
Right.
actually translate into what we see in their behavior?
Well, it explains why they need so much attention.
Okay.
They get really anxious
Yeah.
when they're not the center of attention.
Right.
It's really uncomfortable for them. And the dramatic emotions, the
Yeah.
mood swings, the theatrics,
Yeah.
the
It's
exaggeration,
all about getting that attention.
it's all to get noticed and validated.
Right.
And then there's that initial charm
Yeah.
they can have. But then they have these unstable emotions.
Yeah.
They have trouble with boundaries.
Right.
And that leads to conflict
Yeah.
and relationships that don't last.
They can't sustain it.
Yeah,
And what about that focus on appearance that
No.
seems connected to
absolutely.
needing to stand out?
They're really focused on their looks
Mm-hmm.
because they see it as a way to
Get that validation.
get that validation.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then because their sense of self is kind of shaky,
Right.
they're really easily influenced by other people.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll just adopt someone else's opinions
It's to fit in.
to get approval or attention. Yeah,
Okay, this is all making a lot more sense now.
good.
So let's talk about the causes.
Okay.
Like, why does someone develop HPD in the first place?
It's probably a combination of things,
Mm-hmm.
but let's start with childhood experiences.
Okay.
So if a kid's attention-seeking behavior is always rewarded,
Uh-huh.
they learn that it's the best way
Yeah.
to get their needs met
Or to feel loved.
or valued.
Yeah. And if their parents' affection is inconsistent, they might start being dramatic as a way to get attention.
Like they have to earn it?
Yeah, like they have to earn that care.
Okay.
And if the family really emphasizes looks, that can be a big factor too.
Makes sense. So their self-worth is all about how they look.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
What about other psychological factors?
Okay, so some people with HPD have trouble regulating their emotions.
Okay.
So they use external behaviors, like being dramatic,
Right.
to manage how they're feeling inside.
Interesting.
And they might misunderstand intimacy.
Uh-huh.
They see relationships as super intense.
Wow.
Right from the start.
And that probably leads to problems.
Yeah, it can make it hard to maintain relationships.
Right, because they're moving too fast.
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any biological or genetic factors?
There might be.
Okay.
We need more research.
Yeah.
But some studies suggest there might be imbalances
In certain neurotransmitters.
in the brain.
Yeah, like dopamine and norepinephrine,
Okay.
which are involved in pleasure and emotional regulation.
Right.
So maybe these imbalances
Yeah.
contribute to the intense emotions
Okay.
and the need for stimulation.
Interesting.
And there's also a slightly higher risk of HPD if there's a family history of mood disorders.
Oh, interesting.
So there might be a genetic component,
Okay.
but we need more research to be sure.
Makes sense. What about the impact of society and culture?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, especially these days with...
Social media.
Yeah.
It's like our whole culture is kind of geared toward,
Attention seeking.
yeah, getting attention, getting validation from others.
Right. And social media especially.
Yeah, like how many likes you get, how many followers you have,
It becomes your worth.
becomes your worth. Yeah.
And it can definitely reinforce
Yeah.
those attention-seeking behaviors.
Absolutely.
And if our culture really values looks above everything else, that can also contribute
Definitely.
to those dramatic behaviors.
Yeah, it all ties together.
Right. This has been really helpful.
Go, yeah.
So let's say someone's listening and they're like, oh, wow, I see some of this in myself. Or maybe they're dealing with someone else who has HPD. What are some things they can do?
Okay.
Let's start with self-help strategies.
Okay, so for someone who recognizes these patterns in themselves,
Yeah.
the first thing is to work on their self-worth,
Okay.
but not based on what other people think,
Right.
based on who they really are.
Your inner qualities.
Yeah, their values, their skills,
Yeah.
their character.
Right.
And they need to learn to express their emotions
Yeah.
in a more healthy way,
Oh,
to tell the difference between what they're really feeling
Right.
and what they're doing to get attention.
That's going to be hard.
It takes a lot of self-awareness,
Yeah.
and they need to change how they interact with people.
Okay.
They need to really listen and communicate in a more balanced way.
Right.
Not always making it about them.
Right.
And they need to rely less on external validation.
Okay. How can they do that?
Well, they can limit their social media use.
Makes sense.
And they can find activities they enjoy
Yeah.
that they can do alone.
That give them a sense of peace.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. What about for the people who are interacting with someone who they think might have HPD?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's important to be supportive,
Right.
but not in a way that encourages the dramatic behavior.
Right, because you don't want to feed into it.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
Okay.
You can encourage them
Yeah.
to express their emotions more genuinely,
Right.
and you need to set boundaries
Yeah.
to protect yourself.
From that manipulation.
Yeah, from that constant need for attention.
And ultimately, it might be helpful to suggest they get professional help,
That's right. Therapy can be really helpful.
like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, CBT or psychodynamic therapy.
Okay.
Those can help them understand their patterns
Yeah.
and develop healthier ways of coping.
And it's important for our listeners to remember
Yeah.
this stuff can be really tough
It is.
to deal with. So if you need to get help yourself
Absolutely.
to learn how to manage these relationships,
Right.
or even just to distance yourself if it's too much,
You have to take care of yourself.
it's okay to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today.
We have.
We've really gone deep on HPD.
Yeah.
It's not just about being outgoing or emotional.
Yeah.
It's this deep-seated pattern
Yeah.
of needing attention that comes from all these different things.
Well, childhood experiences,
Yeah.
how they think, maybe some biological factors,
Right.
and even society and culture.
It's really complex.
It is.
And we talked about the difference between having some traits
Mm.
versus the actual disorder,
Yeah.
which can really impact people's lives.
Absolutely.
And thinking back to that idea of societal influence,
Right.
it's kind of wild to think about how
our culture today,
Yeah.
with the media and everything,
Yeah.
might actually be encouraging these attention-seeking behaviors.
Right. It's like it's almost rewarded.
In a way, yeah.
So it's not just about individual psychology.
Right,
It's like a bigger societal thing.
Yeah.
There's a whole context
Yeah, the whole context matters.
that shapes how we act.
Exactly.
So I want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
If we were more aware of this, both in ourselves and in the world around us, yeah.
Do you think we could interact in a more genuine way?
Right.
A more balanced way?
Less focused on getting validation from others.
Exactly.
And more about connecting with each other.
Yeah, more authentic connections.
That's a really great point.
It's something to think about.
I hope this has been helpful for everyone listening.
You too?
We've learned a lot about a really complex part of human behavior.
Definitely.
And hopefully you feel a little bit more empowered now to navigate these kinds of situations.
That's the goal. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time.